Greetings to all in the love and light of the one infinite creator. My name is Jonathan Tong, and I'm facilitator for the Seattle Law of One study group. We can be found on the list of study groups on the L&L Research webpage shown on your screen. We can also be found on Facebook, and we do meet on Zoom twice a week at the times shown on your screen. You don't have to live in the Seattle area to join our group or join our Zoom sessions, but if interested, you can just let us know at the email address shown on your screen. We'll put you on our mailing list so you can get updates of what we're doing each week, including the topics for the Zoom sessions and including when we have Q&As like this one, if you would like to join us next time. We do have a YouTube channel. If you search for Seattle Law of One, you can see the recordings of previous episodes, Q&As we've done with Jim, as well as Gary and Tricia and Austin from the L&L Research channeling team, as well as the first two episodes for our newly launched Seattle Law of One podcast. You can see the episodes there. And on any of these things, if you click the video link, down below, you should see a list of topics and timestamps. So if you don't really feel like watching everything all the way through, you can kind of skip around, jump around, find topics that are of interest to you. Otherwise, today we are blessed once again to be joined by Mr. Jim McCarty for some informal conversations, question and answers about the Law of One and how to live it in our daily lives. How are you doing, my friend?
Doing well, doing well. Glad to be back home. There's no place like home.
Oh, indeed. Yes. You have been out of town in Nebraska and only got back recently, I believe.
Yes, too.
Uh, yeah, you wrote about it in your Camelot journal, and I believe you were at a memorial for your old high school baseball coach, and you said that that memorial was one of the greatest memories you have of your life. Would you mind sharing a little bit about it with our viewers?
Oh, yeah, sure. Monte Kiffin was my baseball coach when I was 16 years old. And in 1963, he coached us to the state Class A championship here in Nebraska. But he was much more than that as well. He was a coach. Well, he went into coaching when he was at the University of Nebraska after he played for them, and they won two national championships while he was there. And then he became a coach there of the defense. And later on, he became a defensive coach in the NFL and was successful in creating what was called the Tampa 2 defense. So that in 2002, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won the Super Bowl. And so there were a lot of folks at the memorial for Monte in Lexington, Nebraska, which is where I was from. I was born nearby in Kearney, but raised in Lexington. And his son, Lane, who's a current coach at the University of Mississippi, Ole Miss, was there for the graveside memorial. And then we went out to Kirk's Cafe on the restaurant for a celebration of his life. So I got to hear a lot of other people's take on Monte Kiffin because he was an inspiring entity. And if you don't mind, I'll read you his obituary.
Yeah.
It says, Monte Kiffin, the small town kid from Lexington, went on to become one of the most influential defensive coaches in NFL history. Kiffin began with his career in 1966 at the University of Nebraska, where they won two national championships during his time there. He quickly became one of the most respected defensive minds in football history, working with numerous teams, but most notably the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, where he was considered the mastermind of the Tampa 2 defense, helped lead them to their first Super Bowl championship in 2002. He was inducted to the Buccaneers Hall of Fame in 2021, and just last month, he was awarded the Pro Football Hall of Fame Award of Excellence for his outstanding work in the league. In high school, Kiffin was one of the best athletes in the state, winning Nebraska Athlete of the Year in 1958. Monte's legacy transcends statistics and championships. It lives on in the hearts and minds of those who had the privilege of knowing him. His enthusiasm and passion were contagious. His genuine kindness made everyone feel special, and strangers feel like friends. To his family, not only was he the best father and pops, he was their hero, mentor, encourager, and unconditional supporter. So people had a lot of stories like that to tell about Monte. And while we were at Kirk's celebrating his life, they got up and shared their stories. And some of them were from my old teammates we had about six of my teammates there from that 1963 team. And we had a chance to hang out with each other. Some of us hadn't seen each other since shortly after that time, because most moved away. Quite a few lived in that area, but weren't able to come. A few have passed away in succeeding years. So it was a real blessing to be there. And the real reason I was able to go was because Trisha Bean was willing to take care of my cat, Bosco, that has diabetes and had to have insulin injections twice a day. And the other cat, the feral cat upstairs, Benny, who has heart failure and needs special medications too. And originally I was planning on driving out there. It's about a 900-mile drive. But Gary and Trish suggested, well, why don't you take a plane? and I said,
it
well,
being the 21st century and all. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah. Fortunately, they know how to schedule a ride on a flight, and I was able to do that.
Oh,
And
well, that's so sweet.
ended up in little bitty airport in Kearney, Nebraska, where I was born, 35
Wow.
miles from Lexington, where I was raised.
Wow.
And there was, well, you probably know, there was a problem getting me a car from Thrifty Car Rental. They were supposed to be there to let me rent a car, but nobody was there.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Didn't catch that part. The office was closed or what?
The office was closed. It should have been open, but it wasn't. And so one of my teammates, Gary White in Lexington, said, well, he would drive there and pick me up. So he started on his way and got to Overton, which is about 10 miles away from Lexington and 20 miles away from Kearney. And then Tricia was able to call the manager of Thrifty Car Rentals, who happened to be being checked out at a store, a grocery store at the time. So he said, oh, he'd come out there and do that, because I guess his employee didn't make it, didn't stay there. So he came out and got me a car, and I was able to let Gary White know that you don't have to come get me. And there was another sweet soul there that she helped me, because Siri gave both me and Trish the wrong directions for the Thrifty Car Rental. She said it was a 7-minute walk from the airport there. Actually, it was in the airport. And so I was walking down the road thinking it was down there. And this woman who'd gotten off the plane there said, would you like a ride? And I said, well, yeah, sure, thank you. So she gave me a ride to where we thought the Thrifty Car Rental was, but it wasn't there. So we went back to the airport and discovered what I just told you about Trish. And she said, well, if you don't have a ride, just let me know. I have to take this woman here home. She's been gone for 3 months. But if you need a ride, I'll give you a ride. And her name was Suzette. And she gave me her phone number. And so I called her later to let her know that I had gotten a ride and all was well. And I really appreciated her willingness to take me all the way to Lexington.
That's really something.
Yeah. So that's it. That's the way it went. The rest of the flights went pretty well. There were delays here and there, both in Kearney and in Denver. But everything turned out well, and here I am. It's great to be home, but it was a beautiful blessing to be able to go back to Lexington.
Yeah. And well, so two things. One, thanks to Trish for doing that, because she's also like trying to get all the things together for the East Coast coming home event, which I believe is starting in a couple of days from now. So that's really, really sweet of her to do that. And
it is.
Yeah. And second of all, wow, what a intense catalyst experience throughout your time. How do you look at all of this from a law of one perspective, in terms of both the inconveniences that came up as well as the emotional coming home and meeting your old friends and mentor?
Well, whether it seems positive or seems negative, it's all part of your experience on your journey. And if you can look at everything as being positive and a step along the way, then you don't worry so much. It will be as it will be. There are no mistakes. All is well.
Yeah.
So, and it all turned out well. The difficulties, various delays, and
You never got angry or upset or agitated or anything?
No, that never helps. That just makes
Well,
it
I know it
worse.
never helps, but that doesn't keep me from getting ticked off at times. Yeah.
It makes it worse. Well, yeah, I'm saying, well, how come they're not here?
Yeah.
There's got to be a reason. And then, when they weren't there, the last of the employees, that's a tiny airport in Kearney, Nebraska. They have about 2 flights come in and out a day. And they said, well, you have to sit out here on the entranceway. You can't be in the terminal because there's nobody there now. I have to lock the door. And so that was where I was waiting for the manager to come back and eventually unlock the door and rent me a car.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I was only asking because you've said so many times in these Q&As about how anger and stuff was a challenge for you all the way up until that not that many years ago. So I was just curious if
Oh,
something like
yeah.
this was enough to like trigger some
No,
old
the,
reflexes.
the anger that you're talking about that I felt so much, it was anger at myself.
Uh,
Anger when I didn't do things right.
oh,
Anger when I
interesting.
drove a nail and it bent and I cut a line with a saw and it was crooked or something like that. And I break the tool and I'd be angry at myself. And I broke a lot of valuable
Uh,
tools, but
uh,
I learned how not to do that when I had that experience that one night when I broke the monitor on the computer.
that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, that is so wonderful. Yeah, thank you for sharing all that. So, one last question about Coach Kiffin, and then I do see 3 questions in the chat window. So, I wanted to encourage folks who are on the Zoom call, if you have questions to ask Jim, go ahead, put them in there, and we will be calling on Andy, Grace, and Fred before too long. Um, One last question about Coach. So, from a law of one perspective, how do you see this entity who was such a mentor for you in your younger years?
Well, he knew how to do what we needed to do to win. And that was to set our intentions. And that is something Carla always said, you need to set your intention for whatever it is you want to do. So we not only set our intention, but he showed us various ways to get ready to win. We ran a lot of wind sprints to get our bodies stronger and faster. And we did special exercises on the field with a baseball twirling around with the ball over our heads. And most people got dizzy and dropped it, but for some reason I didn't. I don't know why. And so he did that, but he also uh, gave us the feeling that we were respected and that we were supported, and that whenever we needed help, he would give that help and he would do whatever was necessary to help us make our journey into the world of baseball, into the world we lived outside of baseball. And for him, it was a lot of fun to be a coach and to help people realize their dreams, their goals, because he had the
It's
same.
beautiful.
He didn't like losing.
Yeah, I've
And
noticed that about coaches. They kind of tend to have that in common. Well,
yeah,
so do you think Coach Kiffin made the 51% STO graduation cut? Do you think this entity will graduate to fourth density?
I think he will. I think he was of service to so many people in his life because whether you were a coach, a player, a fan, he greeted you like you were his next door neighbor, like you were his brother or sister. And he didn't hold back anything because he was supposedly famous. I mean, he would help you pump your gas at the gas station if you were having trouble pumping gas. I mean, there were some stories about things like that when I was at the Kirk's and we were celebrating his life, and people had their various stories. That just he would go out of his way to help people, uh, and his specialty was helping and coaching. But that wasn't the only way he helped. Everyday
That's
life was
beautiful.
another way of serving.
That is beautiful. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I don't know anything about the dude other than from what's on his Wikipedia page and what you've shared with us. But he sure sounds like somebody who lived the STO life, even if he'd never heard of the law of one, or I
Right.
don't know what his religious or non religious beliefs might have been. But he sure sounds like a really positive entity.
Yeah. Well, he was. He was a Catholic. There used at that time there was a St. Anne's Catholic school in Lexington and a public high school. St. Anne's was Class C, and Lexington High School was Class B, but neither school offered baseball in the summer. So the American Legion, which supported baseball in the summer, was convinced by Monte that, well, since we've got C and B, we should be Class A. And Class A was the same as anybody in Omaha or Lincoln or the bigger schools. So that's how we got to be Class A.
Nice. Well, you are truly a Class A individual, let me say, my friend. I do want to, I do again want to thank you for sharing the stories, and I hope folks who are listening are enjoying this. This is the law of one in real life. This is how it works out. I wanted to ask you a question about the Egyptian tarot. I did recently get a copy of the Royal Road, the George Fatham book, where I believe Don got his images from that he was asking Ra about when they were talking about the Egyptian tarot and the archetypical mind. And I wanted to do a screen share so I could show you the images side by side and see if you can tell us a little bit about this. So I just have the first two archetypes here, and the image on the left is the archetype of the matrix of the mind, also known as the magician. This image on the left came from the Raw Contact Volume 2 Appendix, which is available on the L&L research page. You can buy it in print form, or you can download it for free as PDF. But in the appendix, they have all 22 of the images of the Egyptian tarot there. On the right is the image that was in the Fatham deck. And likewise, the image on the left is the potentiator of the mind, also known as the high priestess. In the Fatham deck, in the image shown on your right, she is referred to as the Virgin. Nothing in particular about high priestess or Virgo or anything like that. So first of all, I just want to ask you, Jim, as far as your recollection of this is concerned, is that image on the right, is that the image that Don was using when he was asking questions of Ra about this?
No, it was the image on the left.
Oh,
Those came from the Church of Light. At that time, it was located in Los Angeles, California. And we questioned Ra using all of those 22. But when it came to being able to publish them, we weren't given permission to do so. So I was in Chicago, I believe, I forget the year, but I found this book, the Fatham book, and I brought that back, and we were able to publish from that book. But we were able to publish the first 7 from the Church of Light because we changed the images. We changed them according to what Ra suggested when we asked about certain features. Some of them were distortions of what Ra had to say. And so they said we should take that out of the deck. And because we took it out of the deck, it made it a new deck. As far as the first 7, we never got any further than the mind, the body, and the spirit. We just got general information there, so we didn't change anything on there.
okay. I was wondering because I know, or if I'm remembering correctly, in the Raw sessions, when Don is asking questions about what is described as the matrix of the mind, he's referring to like objects that are sitting on the box, like the sword or the chalice or whatever those things are that I can see in the image on the right that are clearly not in the image on the left.
Yeah.
So I was assuming the image on the right was the image that Don was looking at when he was asking Ra.
Well, in the first session, when we were talking about the first session of the archetypes, we were talking about those images that were on that square there.
Mhm.
I believe that we could see them. Carla and I were looking at them, and we were the ones that fashioned the questions that Don was asking. And you'll note that when he says that the coin stands for something, but really, I don't see anything there that looks like a coin. And Ross said, well, there is a coin, and it stands for this or that. Or you can remove it from this, the stricture because it's astrological in origin. So
Right. I remember all the references to stars were removed because they were astrological references, right?
right. Right.
Interesting. Well, thank you. I think I was wondering where the titles came from, as in the Matrix of the Mind and the Magician. Were those titles on the top and the bottom of the images that you see on the left? Were those in the original deck that Don was asking about?
Right. The C.C. Zane wrote the Tarot book that had these images in there, and apparently he was the one that came up with them in 19. At least he labeled them in 1936, and so we
Oh,
just
interesting.
went with what he had.
Oh, interesting. Nice. Well, thank you so much for sharing. I do see some questions in the chat window, and I do want to make sure that we have time to get to that. Let's start with, let's see, I think Andy had a question, but Sue Wen was going to read the question for Andy since Andy is not quite available to do that. Sue Wen, would you mind reading Andy's question?
Sure, I'll do it. Andy have a two-part question. Um, uh, she want to know, did you always have awareness of yourself as a spiritual being? And what was your spiritual practice leading up to your contact with Ra?
No, I was what I would call a late bloomer. My spiritual path really didn't start until I was at the Adventure Trail Survival School in Black Hawk, Colorado, 1972. That was the time where we were using dreams and keeping a journal of them in order to discover the blockages in our life that were keeping us from moving forward in our spiritual journey, and literally keeping the brain from circuiting consciousness into the frontal lobes or the indigo ray energy center. So after I was able to successfully do that, um, I felt my uh, click at my indigo ray and felt my brain circulating like a cyclotron. And that was the beginning of my journey. And the teacher at the school then said, each one teach one. Go buy a piece of land in the wilderness. And because the wilderness is the area where you can more come in contact with, I would say, Mother Nature, but he said the solitude and the silence was necessary to work with dreams and to process them. So I went and bought some land after going through a couple of failed looks at land that didn't work. I found a piece of land in central Kentucky and moved there and built a log cabin and lived off the grid for the next 6 years. And while I was there, I did a lot of meditating. And we had a group of people who were part of the hippie revolution and who had been following the dictum to simplify, buy your own land, build your own house, educate your own kids, grow your own food. And so that was the way we interacted and was a service to each other. And through that whole process, I met some folks that were uh, in Don and Carla's meditation group because I just previously heard them on my battery powered radio. And so I got to meet them that way, and my spiritual journey accelerated a great deal then.
That is a great question, and thank you for asking that on Andy's behalf. Sue Wen, did you have any follow-up questions to Andy's question?
Yeah. So, were you religious or were you an atheist before that? Before your
I was neither one. I was raised in the Presbyterian church, and I went to the church until I got into college. And there I was able, about my junior year, to begin living with a priest from the Catholic Church who was sort of a renegade, I guess you'd say. And Father John Scott was his name. And a number of us hippies at the time lived there, and we had our own newspaper called The Scorpion. So you get an idea of our attitude about the world around us. And uh, so at that time, I didn't have a religion, but I had a path. I had a spiritual path. And I have to say that being a hippie was part of my spiritual path. because make love, not war. That's better than war. And it also was my impetus for deciding not to pursue my majors in college. I majored in business and economics, and later didn't want to do that, so I went back and took a year of sociology. Didn't want to do that, so then I decided to join Teacher Corps, and I went down to Jacksonville, Florida, and worked with the inner city kids in the low income area of Jacksonville. And I felt I was being of more service, and my spiritual path was developing more then, but they had a bit too much energy for me. So it was at that point that I went to the survival school in Colorado.
Wow. So earlier, would it be fair to say you were not religious, you were Presbyterian?
Yeah. And one of the curiosities or synchronicities, one of my former team members now is a Presbyterian minister. And he was there giving a memorial eulogy for Monte Kiffin when I was in Lexington.
And was it a good one?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's a really good speaker. And he had some information on some cards that he had a card too with quotes from the Bible that gave me an idea about some other places to read, because I've been reading over and over in the New Testament, and I've read it I don't know how many times. I've got it marked up. Every time I go through it, I mark it with a different mark. So I was looking for something else, and he gave me some impetus there to do that.
Wow.
And he was also one of the only ones there that they asked me what I did, because somebody said beforehand, will you let them know what you do as working for LNL Research and extraterrestrial intelligence being channeled through various instruments? And I said, only if they ask what I'm doing. I'm not going to just come out and say it. They have to ask. So David Irwin was the guy, the pitcher. He was a pitcher, and he's a Presbyterian minister now. Asked me what I was doing. So I was talking to him and Vic Luce, who was one of our players too. And so I told them exactly what I was doing.
And how did they respond?
They were interested, and David Irwin asked me for the website to find out more about what I'm doing. Wow,
that's pretty good. That's not the response I was expecting from a Presbyterian minister. That's neat. Yeah. What a beautiful, what a beautiful experience. What a beautiful encounter.
It was. I'm so grateful for the entire weekend there.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing. It's enables us to all be a part of it, I think, and to learn from it. I did see a question from Grace, but I believe Grace had to leave early, so I think I am looking at it. Grace wanted to know, how might we inspire people who are stuck in the sinkhole of indifference? Any good answers to Grace for that question?
Well, I think all you can do is live your life as positively oriented as possible. And when synchronicity or an inner guidance or your higher self or your subconscious mind brings you in contact with somebody who might be in the sinkhole of indifference, you never know that, but it seems like most people are, theoretically. Just share your love in whatever way is required at that moment. If you're helping them across the street, or carrying their groceries out to the car, or watering their lawn, thinking of things that I've done here with my neighbors here recently. Just do it with your heart, and maybe someday they'll ask you, well, you just seem to enjoy being alive so much, and you're enjoying your life, and what makes you so happy about being alive? And then you can share more about your spiritual journey. I don't think it really helps a lot to just try to impose yourself on somebody and tell them what you think they ought to be doing.
When they ask you why you're so happy, you should tell them aliens, extraterrestrials. Yeah, that's it.
Yes.
No, that's really a beautiful thing, and it makes sense, and we can see how you live that and exemplify it every day, and just being loving and Yeah, I do agree. Do like to think that. I mean, that's really the best way to help anybody is just put that light, put that love out into the world, and whoever resonates with it will resonate with it.
I have a story that might be helpful here. One of Carlos and my good friends used to be a probation officer for felony drug offenders. And she was talking to one this who was he'd been in jail a number of times, and he was considering killing himself. He had a gun back at his apartment, and he was on his way back to the apartment to kill himself because he just did not see any reason to be alive. He was addicted to drugs, and nothing was going right. And why not just kill myself? So on his way home to kill himself, the woman was approaching him from the opposite direction he was walking, and she looked at him and smiled. That's all she did. She smiled. And he thought, if she sees something good enough in me to smile at, maybe I shouldn't kill myself. And so he didn't. Just a smile saved a life.
Yeah. So many times our friends in the Confederation have reminded us that this is not the density of understanding. And you have no idea, no one has any idea what the impacts or not of their actions are. And it's just a part of that faith, I think, that we have to go through in life. And you do the best you can and you put that love out there without any expectation of anything in return or understanding what's to come of it. Where did you hear that story? Is that old story, new story?
That's a story. I guess I heard it from Connie, probably about 8 or 9 years ago. Before she's the one I go visit every third Saturday. She's in the care home now.
Right.
Southern Indiana. She had 2 strokes 5 years ago.
Right. Wow. Yes, I know you've mentioned her oftentimes in the Camelot Journal. You're visiting her every month or so, is that right?
Right, every third Saturday.
Yeah, such a beautiful thing. Thank you for sharing that. Hey, I believe Fred had a question next. Fred, are you still there? Would you like to unmute your mic and ask?
Sure. Thank you for taking my question, Jim. It's really a pleasure getting to talk to you. I did not know this is exactly what the meeting was going to be tonight. I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm really glad to see you.
Surprise!
But since my question kind of ties together the original channeling, if you can, with the things we've learned new from Ra and Quo and whatnot. Is there any more specific examples or specific methods or events to like point to the transitioning period going from third to fourth? Meaning, I guess this ties with the question about the sinkhole of indifference, because you always run into people in situations where it's dire or there's just too much negative emotion, and people like to have, or at least me, I like to have at least somewhat recent examples of the way things are changing, just to give us a snapshot of that, if that makes any sense.
Well, throughout the last, I guess, 10 or 15 years of the Quo channelings, Quo has suggested that planet Earth is going more and more into the fourth density mode as it is absorbing the vibrations of fourth density. And that the people who are already feeling their spiritual journey as one of service to others are having an opportunity to enhance that journey with these energies. And the people who are not, who are in that sinkhole of indifference, sometimes find it's kind of a more traumatic situation because it's magnifying their difficulties. So I think it's a time when both directions of service to others and service to self, or more likely the sinkhole, is being magnified. I'm sure the negative entities are also using the energies of the fourth density too, go their way of service to self and separation and control. So I think everybody's got a chance now to use these advanced energies, these higher energies that are everywhere around us. It's sort of like swimming in the fourth density now, in whatever way they've chosen. And
Does that answer your question, Fred? Did you have any follow-up
Yeah,
questions to
thank
that?
you. That's it's and you see it. I'm sure micromanagement wise, seeing it step by step all along the way. It's like watching a baby grow up. You don't see a baby for 6 months, you're going to notice a difference, but you see it every day and you don't. But I know that in steps, you look at time blocks in the last 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, you see magnificent differences in some of the way people interact, some of the way, and some of that's the internet and everything. But a lot of that, I think, is energies, just different people being born, different people coming out of that sinkhole and developing that really positive energy. And like you were saying, that you're pooling that energy. So I didn't know if there was maybe some things that like hints of things we can look forward to be paying attention to, other than open contact. Then.
Any additional thoughts on that, Jim?
well, just look for the opportunities that come your way to be of service. You never know what it's going to be. I don't think you have to set your intention for any specific thing. Just set your intention to do whatever comes to you, and go with the flow. Go with that energy, and use it positively to do what you can.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed out, Fred, how last 10 years have been so radically different from the 10, 20, 30 plus years before that. That's certainly the first thought that came to my mind. And I would guess we can only expect to see those polarization effects increase in the years to come. That would be my guess. I did see another question from Andy, and Andy, I believe, is not able to ask her question, but she wanted to know, Jim, if you think that you are dual activated.
I think most wanderers probably are dual activated. In fact, they have to be dual activated because they're from higher densities. And Ross said that Don, Carla, and I were all wanderers. So I would say, yeah, probably dual activated.
Yeah, I'd imagine. Yeah, especially that whole hippie generation. I know you've mentioned that more than a few times, and it always reminds me of what Quo said in some session where they were talking about waves of wanderers that came to the earth. One was, I believe they said, at the beginning of this country's founding, I guess this experiment in democracy versus monarchy, as it were, was something that created this call for help. I think they also talked about World War II, or the detonation of the bomb was also something that triggered another wave of wanderers. And they said the 60s, the generation that came of age in the 60s, was a really big wave of wanderers. And anyone who's old enough to remember what the culture and the music and everything was about, it was about love, as you said. It was so obvious they were talking about the importance of love. This beautiful thing. I believe Walter had a question, and he said it is a somewhat mundane question about lawn care. So we don't get a lot of questions about lawn care here. I'm really looking forward to this one. Walter, would you like to go ahead, ask your question? You'll have to unmute your mic. There you go.
Hey, Jim, long time, first time, and I just wanted to call in and ask about, I guess, if any experience or feelings that you have about having to use pesticides or anything like that. I'm sitting out here in my backyard. I've started kind of taking care of my lawn more recently, and I often kind of read your blog for many years, and I've gotten more into taking care of just all the little things that are growing out here. But I have a lot of fire ants, in my area, and I'm concerned that they're getting onto my dogs and biting them. And I didn't really want to use just pesticides in general, but I feel very conflicted about using them, and I just was wondering if you have any feelings about using that, or if you've encountered having to, uh, I guess,
That's a
deal
great
with
question.
things like that.
Jim, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I would suggest checking with your veterinarian because they have treatments to keep fleas and ticks off of dogs and cats. There may be something that they could use for fire ants too. I personally don't know, but I'm sure that this is a problem that other people have had, and I would check with your vet.
Great, thanks.
Was your concern mainly about your pets, or are you just trying to get rid of the fire ants in general?
I kind of would like to get rid of them, and but I really don't feel good about uh, having to like kill the little guys because they're just there, they're not hurting anybody, and
Right.
they sting me a good bit, but I can kind of deal with it. But I just didn't really know ethically how I feel about getting rid of those kind of things.
Yeah, what would you do, Jim, if you had, I don't know, fire ants or termites or, well, something eating your house is different. What would you do if you had fire ants in your yard, Jim?
Well, I would check with my vet to see what to do about it. Because I used to have Dandelion was an outdoor cat, and that's why I know that fleas and ticks can be treated with a medication you put on their backs.
But you wouldn't try to get rid of the ants in general? You
Well,
would try to coexist with them?
I would try to coexist. I've never had to deal with fire ants. If I got bit a lot, I might have a different opinion. It may not be a right opinion, but I might react in some way. But
yeah, I'm guessing if they're called fire ants, yeah.
There's a reason for that name.
No, I think there's a reason for it. Yeah, they're not water ants. Yeah, Fred, I saw you had your hand up. Did you have a clarification question on this particular subject?
Yeah, and I saw somebody posted in the chat too. Diatomaceous earth keeps insects out of your yard. Pretty much, they don't like it. They touch it. They know it'll kill them, so they stay away from it. It's their choice at that point. And also, I give my
that's
dog
a natural substance as opposed to a synthetic.
It's ground up as powder. Don't breathe it. It's very fine. It's like baking soda. And I give my dogs coconut oil to keep the fleas and ticks off of them. I don't know if it works for fire ants, but coconut oil. I've had 2 ticks this whole year. Wow. Never happened before, but just coconut oil.
You heard it here, folks. This is law of one lawn maintenance.
Every person I know in these groups, the law of one, the CE5s, everything, loves their pets.
Yeah.
And we're taking them into 3D. We're holding their hand or their paw, whatever you want to say. So Jim's experienced it, having his, cats and everything. And I have my dogs and I've had my cats, and we all love our animals and we want to do good things for them because we're showing them love. That's why they're going to 3D. They want to come back as 3D because they want more of this.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Hey, let's see, folks, I'm looking at my clock and I'm thinking we've got about 10, 15 minutes left. So how about if we take a question from Jenny and a question from Sue Wen? And unless I'm mistaken, I believe those are the last 2 questions in the chat window. And that'll leave us just enough time for a pop quiz, I believe. Jenny, would you like to ask a question?
Yeah, I think I have a misunderstanding about how God disseminated himself to be able to do the creation that we have now. And because I remember reading about it and then learning about it, and I was very confused on how it all happened. And then I started thinking yesterday, I was journaling, are we sure that God, or do we know if God left, for better lack of a word, a piece of himself still up there in the seventh density, or could it be, is the language clear enough from Ra that no, he's still up there, he just split himself, and was it in 9 parts to be able to create what we know now as, part of our existence? I don't even know how to ask the question.
I think I get the gist of it. Jim, do you have any thoughts on that? Because I think we're looking at 2 fairly different understandings here.
Well, all I can share is what Ra had to say and my perception of what Ra had to say. And that was, in the beginning, there was no God, male or female. There was intelligent infinity. And then intelligent infinity had a thought. And that thought was the desire to know itself. And so it took that desire to know itself and created what we call the great central sun, or the logos of love. And that love, which was the great portion of the creator, or intelligent infinity, was then potentiated into that love. And the desire to know itself focused through that love of the logos and created light, which is what we see as the manifested universe. Everything you see is light. It's photons and protons vibrating at various angles and speeds of rotation. Even, your desk, your house, the ground, the trees, the birds, you, everyone, everything is made of light. And this light is the manifestation that allows the creator to know itself through the experiences that each portion of light, each person, each intelligent entity creates when they make free will choices. And they do the same as the creator. They have this choice to know themselves and to know the creator, which helps the creator to know itself. And so it's a win-win situation. We get to know more of ourselves. The creator gets to know more of itself. And this is our spiritual journey, discovering this connection between us and that is within us. We're all the creator too. And we help the creator to know itself. So it's a relationship that only seems separated. And that seeming separation in third density is what gives us the ability more easily to make that choice, service to self or service to others, and move past the veil of forgetting of the third density back into a closer representation and journey with the creator that gets closer and closer as we go through the densities until we come to the 7th density of foreverness that turns into the 8th density, the octave of completion, the black hole. And then it all starts again.
Wow.
And that just kind of sums up the beginning and end of the universe. Yeah. Does that answer your question, Jenny?
Yeah.
Do you have any clarification questions?
Yeah. So I was wondering, so in the 7th density, is that the infinite intelligence? And if it is the 7th density, do we know for sure that it actually exists right now, or will it be created when all of us go to the 7th density and then we're all infinite intelligence? Does that make sense, that question? I had that last night and I just was like, well, what if no one's in the 7th density? What if there is nothing in the 7th density until we get there?
I think your question makes sense. Jim, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it makes sense. The 7th density is a density of foreverness. That's where our mind, body, spirit complex totality, which is the higher self of our higher self, exists. And that's where the blending back into unity with everyone and everything begins. But it is completed within the 8th density, so that those who have made it to the 7th density already, and Ross said they only have 2.5 million years left to go for their being in the 7th density, they will all be there in a timeless state. It would seem to us they're there before we are, and from our point of view, where we do have a past, a present, and a future. They are there before us. But when we all get there, it will all be happening in what Ra calls the present moment, which is a kind of a paradox. Carla always said paradox is a great symbol of spiritual qualities. So I think, yes, there are some that are already there and before us, but yes, we will all be there together. And in the eighth density, we will all coalesce together without doubt in that present moment into the black hole, which is that place where all of it is beginning again with that chaotic feeling of mindless, timeless, mind, body, spirit complexes don't exist anymore. It's the all of the coalescing of information and seeming chaos that will eventually, in the timeless state, begin to coalesce once again into the first density, where there's earth, wind, fire, and water, and fire and air teach earth and water how to be formed, and the whole process starts again.
Wow, thank you. That's great.
Bearing in mind that third density is not the density of understanding. That's a really big question. Those are all great questions. Thank you for, go ahead, Jim.
And words fail to accurately describe it.
You did a pretty good job. I would say that's pretty good job of describing the indescribable. Jenny, thank you so much for questions. Yeah. I believe we have time for one more question, and that is from Sue-Wen. Sue-Wen, would you like to unmute your mic and ask your own question this time?
Yes, thank you. I want to ask about Carla's kidney problems. So in session 78, I think Ra said her time-space renal complex is perfect, so it was healed, but her physical complex kidney still show damage. So what was her kidney condition after Ra contact? Was it ever bothered her, or she was fine after that?
Her kidneys never bothered her after the Ra contact. She did have rheumatoid arthritis, which was a continuing problem with a lot of pain, and she had to work through that pain. And that was one of the things in the Ra contact that Ra was kind of suggesting to her, because she dealt with the pain by ignoring it and wanted to go forward with sessions when maybe she would have been wiser not to martyr herself and to go through more pain. So we had to be careful about when we had sessions. And at one point, Ra suggested that it would be a good idea if Don and I were the ones to make the choice, and Carla would simply say, okay, because she was willing to martyr herself whenever she could to have a Ra session, because she was so intent in serving the Creator by having the sessions. And she also liked seeing Don smile after a session, because he was what she called her melancholy man. And he just thought the world was a crazy place. And the only thing that was happening in a happy way for him at the Ra contact was being able to speak with Ra and to ask questions.
Wow. Oh, that's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I don't think I've ever heard that part about melancholy man before. That is such a beautiful, image. Sue-Wen, did you have any follow-ups on that?
So I guess, so her kidney never bothered her. So does she go check it at the doctors, and the doctor says it's fine, or?
Yeah, she didn't have any continuing problems with the kidneys.
Okay.
So they weren't a problem after the healing that occurred in Mexico City with Pachita.
That's right.
Cool. Thank you.
Another great story. Thank you, Sue-Wen. What a great question. Josh, did you have a clarification question, follow-up?
Yeah, hi, just a quick follow-up. Hi, Jim. Hi, everyone. Did Carla exhibit symptoms, or was she diagnosed with rheumatoid or arthritis prior to channeling?
Yes. When she was being raised by her parents, they knew that she had great abilities as she was really inspirational. She was able to do things other kids weren't. She had great intelligence. And so they wanted to help accentuate that intelligence by not giving her compliments and by showing her instead, giving her constructive criticism is what they called it. And this was her lesson of learning how to give without expectation of return. But it was such a traumatic type of lesson that by the age of 12, she didn't think there was any way she could be of service because she was always getting this constructive criticism. So she prayed to die. And 6 months later, her kidneys failed. And she was in another dimension, having a near-death experience. And she was walking up this incline and knew just over the hill that her spiritual family was there. And she was eager to get to them. And all of a sudden, a voice came out of the blue and said, "It is not your time to go. And you do have service to offer." And so that was enough inspiration for her to want to come back. And so when she came back, she saw in the hospital where she was, the doctors and nurses surrounding her, like a circle of heads around, just, trying to keep her alive because for a while they thought she was dead. And that's when she decided that she did have service. But one of the after effects of that experience was the rheumatoid arthritis set in at that time. And apparently this is something that she had pre-incarnatively chosen and realized later that this rheumatoid arthritis would keep her from being able to go out into the world around her and to exercise her desire to party or to run or dance or whatever. It would keep her in the state of needing to meditate, to pray, and to become a channel. So it was a choice made pre-incarnatively that was realized during the failure of her kidneys. And that's when the rheumatoid arthritis set in and became a way of keeping her on her spiritual journey of meditation, contemplation, prayer, and channeling.
That's fascinating. Thank you. And thank you for the question, Josh. I'm looking at my clock, and it looks like we are really close to the end of an hour. Jim, you got time for a little pop quizzy poo?
Oh, I'm sorry. I have to go now.
Too late. Too late. I think you're going to enjoy this one. I really think you're going to enjoy this one. I'm not sure if you're going to get any of the answers right, but I think you're going to really enjoy
I know
it.
I'm not.
Yeah.
A, C, and D.
Yeah. It is okay to ask your higher self for help on this one if you want. You can do that. Just no Confederation entities. So yes, once again, we're going to do a pop quiz just to add a little bit of levity and laughter to the end of otherwise serious discussions about metaphysics and spiritual growth and evolution. Last time, Jim, we quizzed you on flowers and gardening, and today's pop quiz is about something else you have a lot of personal experience with, and that is cats. As you may or may not know, Quo once said that the entities known as your cats have a history within the archetypical experiences of your third density that dates back, shall we say, using your reference of time, to many, many thousands of years ago, moving especially through that culture that you know as the Egyptian culture, moving back even farther to the roots of this experience into the culture known to you as Atlantean. Thus, the cat has for great eons of your planet's metaphysical experience become associated with the mass mind of your planetary sphere, with that which is protective, nourishing, loving, and inspirational. Thus, the connection between this creature and the quality known as love is one which is steeped in metaphysical experience and within the roots of your subconscious mind. So today, we're going to ask you 3 multiple choice questions about our beloved feline friends. See how many of them you can guess correctly. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. As usual, the points don't matter. And if you had fun, you won. And if you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on Zoom, you can type your answers in the chat window if you want. And if you are watching on video somewhere else, you can say the answers to yourself. All right. Your first question, Mr. Jim McCarty, is: in a battle with ancient Egyptians, how did Persian armies use cats to win? Was it A, they used them as shields, or B, did they use them as decoys, or C, did they use them as spies?
I would say B, use them as decoys.
That would make sense. I had fun writing this quiz. All three of these seem like they could be reasonable ones. The correct answer is, in fact, is A. The Persian armies defeated the ancient Egyptians at the Battle of Pelusium in 525 BCE by using cats, ibises, and other animals the Egyptians considered sacred as shields. According to Greek historian, the Egyptians did not dare to fire their arrows when the Persian opponents held cats aloft in front of them, thus allowing them to sack the city, basically.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. I was thinking, well, shields, they're going to get killed right away. But okay, not if they're Egyptians for your fighting. All right.
No, indeed. But that is so hilarious. Do you have any good cat stories? Have your cats ever done anything weird at channeling sessions or around the house?
Oh.
Do they like run around at 3 a.m. and push stuff off of shelves and stuff?
Well, as I've been working with the co-channelings, a couple of times there have been cats making noises in the kitchen, or something went crash. And so they had to pause the channeling for a moment. And then just recently, Bosco likes to hop on people's laps unexpectedly. And sometimes the person who's doing the channeling is the unexpected recipient of Bosco's presence. So yeah,
That's got to be something as a channel. Has it happened to you? Has a cat jumped on your lap while you were channeling?
Oh yeah.
So how did you deal with it?
I just ignored the cat.
Wow, you can do that. Wow.
Well, so far so good. If
That's
the
amazing.
cat usually just hops up there and lays on my lap. So,
Yeah.
but if it started rubbing on my face or something, I would probably have Bosco likes to scratch himself or to rub himself on my face or my head. When I lift the weights 3 times a week, and I kind of collapse on the pillow on the bed there, and he hops up there and he does this, to my head with his head. But fortunately, they've never done that while I'm channeling.
Yeah. Well, I guess compared to other things I've read about in the channeling sessions, whether it's answering machines or somebody knocking on the door or delivery or
telephone
lawn mowing.
ringing.
Yeah. I guess that is fairly benign. Are you ready for your next question?
Okay.
Which of the following is not true about cats? Is it A, they cannot taste sour, B, they can drink seawater, or C, adult cats cannot drink milk? Which of those is not true?
I would say B.
It seems weird, but apparently, according to my sources, they can drink seawater. The correct answer is A. A would have been true if we changed the sour to sweet, because apparently cats cannot taste sweet, but they can taste sour. And apparently they can drink seawater, and apparently adult cats cannot drink milk. Do you ever give any of your adult cats milk? Do they?
No, I never give them milk, and I had no idea if there's any kind of way to know if a cat couldn't taste sour. I mean, what is sour?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Bad
that would be an
cat
interesting experiment to see. Yeah. Do your cats ever bring you like dead animals or anything as trophies, as gifts?
My cats now don't go outside. So
Oh.
when Dandelion was outside, yeah, I got some of those gifts.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't blame him though. I mean, cats are predators.
Yeah. So what did you do? Did you like thank him for it, or did you like make any?
I said, Dandelion, give me the squirrel or the baby robin or whatever, and I go bury it in the pet cemetery.
Oh, wow, that's sweet. Yes, there's a lot of animals back there. Are you ready for your last question?
Oh, I'm hoping for 1 for 3 here.
All right, you can do it. Which well-known American writer had as many as 19 cats at one time? Was it A, Mark Twain, B, Ernest Hemingway, or bloody hell, C, Harper Lee?
Well, if you take Carla and I together, we had 19 cats, but not at one time. But we'll go ahead here. Let's say Mark Twain.
Wow, you got it. You got it. Was that just a lucky guess?
That was a lucky guess. So I'm hitting 333.
That's nice. That's pretty good. That's pro level if you're baseball for sure.
By the way,
Yeah.
Our baseball team that won the state championship had a collective average of 348.
Oh, wow. That's pretty good.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
Nobody in the majors is hitting 348. But
Yeah.
if we averaged everybody on our team, we were all collectively hitting 348.
Does that mean somebody was like super stellar and somebody was not so great?
Yeah, well, there was both ends.
Both ends, yeah. That's pretty impressive, though. He clearly had a great coach. Yeah, apparently Mark Twain once wrote that when a man loves cats, I am his friend and comrade without further introduction. He owned 19 cats, many with cute names like Soapy Mal and Sour Mash, and so deep was his love for cats that he even rented them for company when he would go traveling and stay somewhere for the summer. He would rent cats. So I was going to ask you that question, how many cats you and Carla had over your lifetime, and the answer is 19?
19.
Wow.
Yeah.
So any particular favorites? Would Dandelion be like your favorite of the 19? If you had
Dandelion and Chloe are my favorite of all time.
Nice.
Yeah.
And tell us why. Tell us a little bit about them.
Well, because there was so much love and there was so much fun between us that connected us. And actually, Carla, when Dandelion and Chloe passed away, they were 4 days apart 2 years ago, June 30th and July 4th. I got a message from Carla in a dream that said that they had made it into the third density.
Oh.
And so when I got up from the sleep, I wrote down what she said in the dream. And later in my meditation, which I always have about a half hour after I've eaten and had my breakfast and fed the cats, she came back and expanded on it. So I have that written down. I think at the time I put it in my Camelot journal entry.
Wow. I don't remember. Do you remember what she said at that point?
Basically, they had made it. I mean, there's a whole lot more to it. I've got it in my room if you wanted to hear it. But
that's so beautiful. What a beautiful thing. Yeah.
I think 7 cats was the most we had at one time.
Wow. Yeah, that's a lot. That would be like herding the proverbial cats. Well, I really wanted to thank you for spending time with us again. It's been a joy as always, and really loved the heartfelt stories this time, hearing things that I've never heard from you before and hearing questions that have never been asked before. So I want to thank everyone on the Zoom call for being here. Jim, did you have any last thoughts, reflections you wanted to say before we say goodbye?
Well, I just want to thank everybody for the questions. It's always a great thing for me to be able to take another aspect on the law of one and my own spiritual journey and apply it to whatever question, because my spiritual journey has been the law of one. I know everybody here is traveling the spiritual journey, the law of one as well, probably with some other facets to their jewel of the creation and how it works around for them. And it's an honor for me to be here, to speak with each of you, to feel your open hearts, and to try to open my heart to you so we can make those connections and keep those connections for our future gatherings. And even when we're not together, we are always together, for we are one.
Dude, love you much, my friend. Thank you for everything you've done and continue to do in service to others. Thank you to all our friends at L&L Research for all they've done and continue to do in service to others. For everyone on the Zoom call today, thank you so much for being here and bringing your loving vibrations and your questions and everything. Thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. And for everyone who's watching this on video at some other nexus in space-time or time-space in the near future, in the distant future, we are thinking of you, and we thank you for all you've done and continue to do in service to others. Until next time, in love and light of the one infinite creator, Adonai, namaste.
Adonai, thank you. Bye.
Love you all.